Right. Hey, folks. So today I've got for you a free routine, a push-pull legs routine. I wanted to put this out there. Push-pull legs is pretty popular, certainly around the UK. A lot of people are doing it. Almost everyone seems to be doing it. And I've seen good versions and bad versions. So I wanted to just put something out there with my stamp of approval. I don't have time to write a full book about this at the moment. I'm currently writing a different book, but I thought I'd put this out there in the hopes that it's useful for some of you. Before we go on to that, though, just a quick disclaimer. I don't want to add to the confusion of the fitness industry by telling you, look, you have to do this, or trying to make you feel a sense of FOMO. You don't have to do this. If what you're doing is working, just carry on doing what you're doing. Don't feel like you have to change this, all right? Yeah, I just wanted to put that out there because I don't want to add to the confusion and everyone changing routines. If you're doing something that's working, just carry on doing it. Now, in terms of who it's for, well, if you are looking for a new routine, let's say, for example, you're starting a new phase, you've been doing something that hasn't been working, or perhaps it's been causing you injury, then yeah, sure, this is a consideration. This is something which I put my stamp of approval on. It works. I know it works because I use this as a backbone for quite a few clients. So I know it works. Or let's say you're a guy who has been training for a while, but you're a bit confused. Maybe you've watched a few too many length and partial videos and you don't know what to do anymore. Who knows, but if you haven't significantly improved your physique over the last year and you're still pushing and young and healthy, this is something to look at. If you can't hand on heart say, I added 40 kilos onto my bench over the last year, or at least 20, then yeah, odds are you probably look exactly the same. And maybe it's worth considering something like this. Now, let's get into it. Before we get into it, though, as usual, drop a subscribe if you haven't done so. If you're watching this and you're just scrolling by, hit subscribe. Drop a comment, like. Also, if you're interested in coaching, there's a link in the description below. Right, so first of all, why the push-pull legs? Well, apart from it being a very popular routine right now, I wanted to put it out there because it's a very flexible routine. Yeah, there's hardly any overlap. There's very minimal overlap between the days. So if you want to run it concurrently, if you want to run it with days off, if you're busy one day and you can't make it to the gym, it's extremely flexible. I asked on my YouTube community page how often you guys train, and there were a variety of answers between 3 to 4 to 5 or 6. So this applies. This routine can be run any number of days per week. If you want to run it as little as 3 days, go for it. If you want to run it as high as 6 days, go for it. There's minimal overlap, so it'll work. Okay, so we're going to get straight into it. Now, I want to present you, first of all, with 2 versions of push. So there's going to be push 1 and push 2. Yeah, we'll cover that first. All right, so real simple. I'll just run through it. I want you to do 3 main presses on this day, followed by 3 isolations. So in the first instance, that should be some kind of chest press, some kind of shoulder press, and some kind of tricep press, followed by isolation work for each of those 3 areas. So chest, shoulders, tricep. So day 1, push 1 might be incline bench, overhead press, close grip bench, pec deck, side laterals, and Tricep Pushdowns. Done. Okay. Now, day 2, push 2 would mirror that, but using either dumbbells or machines. So essentially you have a bit of periodization. Like the great man Ronnie Coleman himself, one day is predominantly barbell based, the other day will be predominantly dumbbell or machine based. Nice. Now, I also want to present you with a alternate version for the more tricep dominant lifter. Now, this is the only part where I would give you 2 different versions. So 2 different push days if you are a tricep dominant lifter, because I think for a tricep dominant lifter, you probably will be overdoing the work on the elbows and you'll end up with sore elbows if you are very heavily tricep dominant. Now, if you're a more balanced lifter, or let's say you don't have any significant weaknesses, cool, just do the first version, no problem. Let's say you're a bit further along and whatever you do, it ends up being very tricep focused. Okay, in that case, you don't need specific compound tricep work. So you don't need a close grip bench and you probably don't need weighted dips. So for you, I would suggest an alternate 3 presses, which would be a bench press, an incline, and an overhead. Simple. Because the idea being all the presses will give you a lot of tricep work anyway, so you don't need anything specific. And then you can follow that with pec deck, side laterals, and pushdowns as an isolation for the triceps. But the compounds are what's going to grow you mostly. And again, the second version will just be something similar, but with dumbbell and machine versions. Okay, nice and simple. Now, before we move on, in terms of like reps, so I'll just cover this now because this applies for the whole routine. Generally speaking, for the compounds, you want to be looking at reps between, I would say, 6 to about 12. Yeah. And feel free to vary that a little bit on the days. So maybe day 1 will be more 6 to 10 range. Day 2 might be more 8 to 12 range. You don't have to do that, but it can help recovery and just help balance. Essentially, the more advanced you are, the more you need to do stuff like that. The less advanced you are, the less need. It's more just about keeping the stress off the joints. It's not anything special. Because remember, the bottom line is still, repeat after me, poundage progression with medium to high reps in good form. You guys should know that if you watch the channel. So those are the push days. And just for push, you have one alternate version because it's needed. Now, the pull days are pretty straightforward. Essentially, what we're trying to do with the pull days is we're trying to mirror the work done in the push days. So in the push days, you've got 3 heavy pushes. Yeah. Pull days, you want 3 heavy pulls. Makes sense. You're doing that to balance the body. So you want to at least try for balance. Now, I'm not suggesting one set of chest is worth one set of back in terms of balance. I'm just saying it's not a bad starting point, or at least bear that in mind. What I don't like to see is somebody who does, say, 8 sets of overhead pressing, 8 sets of chest pressing, 8 sets of pulling, and then wonders why they have elbow problems. Like, Pikachu face. What happened? But that's surprisingly common. Or shoulder problems, for example. It's surprisingly common. You would be surprised at how many people are doing stuff like that. But anyway, I digress. Pull days. So, yeah, you're essentially looking at 3 pulls, 2 arm exercises, and 1 ab exercise for, again, 6 exercises done on that day. So I would suggest day 1, bent over row, pull downs, then either a single arm row or Kelso shrugs, followed by dumbbell curls, and cable crunches. Voila. Day 2 mirrors that, and you're looking at weighted chins, a machine or dumbbell row, with then single arm pull down or, again, Kelso shrugs, followed by barbell curls, preacher curls, and cable crunches. Nice. Okay. So 2 evenly matched pull days, which match each other, just different versions, but also mirror the push days, so you have at least the beginnings of some kind of balance. And again, I'll just say that point again. I'm not suggesting that's going to fix all of your issues with your shoulders and your elbows. But what I'm saying is at least be aware of these things. Okay. The key is to try and at least aim for balance to avoid injuries and whatever. Now we'll finally cover the legs. Legs are kind of separate from that, and legs are almost balanced within themselves. So we're trying to balance quads with hamstrings. Just to point out, hamstrings are not a small muscle group, despite what some influencers in the industry say, and trying to at least aim for balance between your quads and hams will protect your knees. Okay, so treat your hamstrings as a main mover and fight for balance. So day 1, I would say squats, good mornings, leg press, leg curl, and calves. Nice and simple. Squats and good mornings are a good combination because typically speaking, you can use the same equipment for both. So practically, it's a nice combo. You might squat with a free weight and you can good morning with the same bar afterwards. Day 2 would be more of a hip hinge focused day. Leg press, RDL, leg extensions, leg curls, calves. Whether you want to do an RDL or a stiff leg deadlift, I don't mind, whatever you fancy. But again, the point is more trying to balance the quads and ham ratio. So, okay, those are the days. You got 2 push, 2 pull, 2 legs. Remember, with the push, you have alternate versions. You're not supposed to do both, okay? So don't take that as an excuse to do 2 push days for every 1 pull day or 1 leg day. I know we all like to work our chest and shoulders. But let's cover reps next. Reps are one of those things which don't matter that much. Yeah, it's more of individual preference, but I'll give you some general guidelines. As a general rule, you want your compounds a bit lower and your isolations a bit higher, as a general rule. Now, Where that might differ is guys who are a little bit more advanced or who have injuries. You may need to go higher overall. So you may want to go higher when it comes to compounds if you have a bust up shoulder, for example. Now, in my general experience, as long as you just keep the volume in check, you probably should be okay. But again, your mileage might vary, but those are my general guidelines if you're completely stuck on what to do. Now let's talk about the big one, which is volume. Volume, there's probably more of a conversation here to be had because it does differ. So I'm going to cover, roughly speaking, beginners, intermediates, and advanced lifters. And I'm going to explain during the breakdown what you should be looking for. So for beginners, typically speaking, you're going to need less volume for two reasons. One, because you're a beginner, your body is still ripe for change. Yeah, it's still going to be very new to exercise. So yeah, just focus on quality and focus on pushing harder. You want to really keep an eye on form, okay? And make sure you're pushing as hard as possible. Try not to pay too much attention at this point to stretch, squeeze, all that kind of BS, which the industry has been feeding you for the past couple of years. Just focus on good, reasonable form, keep the bar moving, and push as hard as possible. Remember that all the stretch and squeeze in the world won't substitute for more weight on the bar in good form for medium to high reps. When you can get to the point where you're capable of benching 3 plates aside for a single or 2.5 plates aside for a set of 10, you will be big and strong. That's my underlying tenet, not the stretch or the squeeze or the volume, all that BS. Okay. So if the beginner, you're looking at lower volumes, focus on effort. If you give a beginner a lot of work to do, typically they get overwhelmed and they mediate their efforts. You want to give beginners a small amount and just get them to focus on working really hard. So for beginners, you're looking at, I would say, between 2 to 4 sets per body part per session. Now, I should explain at this point, for the purpose of this routine, I'm not focusing on volume per week. I'm focusing on volume per session. And that is particularly volume per body part per session, because this routine can be run 3, 4, 5, 6 days a week. So it makes more sense to focus on volume per body part per session, because your weekly volumes will be different. So yeah, for a beginner, 2 to 4 sets per body part per session. For an intermediate, this is where your volume would be higher. I think it's higher because at this stage, your form is probably pretty decent and your ability to push is pretty decent, but the weight on the bar is not that high. You're probably in that mid-range. You're definitely not benching over 3 plates. You're probably not benching much under 2 plates. You're in that kind of mid-zone. So I would say you need more work just to make up for the stimulus. So yeah, you're looking at between probably 4 to 8 sets per body part per session. 4 to 8 is about right. Don't feel like more is going to get you more gains. Do enough to see robust progress. That's your only consideration. More doesn't always mean better. Okay, better means better. Just the end point is getting stronger in good form for medium reps. The end point is not doing more volume. Now, for the advanced guys, well, I mean, the argument is for the advanced guys, they should know what they're doing. But, perhaps you're in that group of people I mentioned at the beginning who might be a bit confused. So for the advanced guy, the volume is going to be lower. Now, it's going to be lower for 2 reasons. One is because you know how to push hard. If you're a guy who's advanced, and by advanced, I mean you're benching over 3 plates, squatting over 4, deadlifting over 5, you will know how to push. Now, yeah, maybe these days that's not very PC for me to say. Maybe these days, every guy who's benching 2 plates aside wants to be called advanced. There's a lot of people who want the trophy without competing in the competition. You can have that in your own little dream worlds. I'm talking reality here. So in reality, you're stronger, you know how to push, you need less work to send the signal for growth. And I would say for the advanced guy, you're looking at between 3 to 6 sets per body part per session. Okay. Now, because somebody is going to ask, how does that look like? So let's just run it back. Let's say you're an intermediate guy doing between 4 to 8 sets. Let's say 6, which is a reasonable amount. 6 sets per body part per session. It's a reasonable amount. So if we look at the push one, I would say that would be 3 sets for incline bench, 3 sets for overhead press, 3 sets for close grip bench, and then 3 sets each for pec deck, side laterals, pushdowns. So that is 6 exercises, 3 sets each, 18 sets for the total workout. It's a lot, but it's a doable amount. You should be able to do that within an hour-ish, hour 15 maybe, and get out. But again, at the intermediate stage, you generally need the higher volumes. For the advanced guy, your workouts are probably still going to take an hour because you're going to have more warm-ups to do because you're stronger. For the beginner, yeah, your workouts might take a shorter amount of time. That's fine. That's not a problem. If you're a beginner doing, what did I say, 2 to 4 sets per body part per session, yeah, you might be done in half an hour. Cool. Good. Go and eat. That's what you should be doing. And if we just run that through the lower body day, okay, again, let's take your intermediate, 6 sets per body part per session. Might be 3 sets of squats, 3 good mornings, 3 leg press, 3 leg curls. And for calves, I don't think you should do all 6. Maybe do somewhere between 3 to 6. Or if you want to, pick 2 different types of calf raises, like standing and seated, or donkey and leg press, and do 3 sets each. But again, whatever you need to do to progress, progression is more important than an arbitrary amount of volume. But that's so important. I'm going to say that one more time. Progression is more important than an arbitrary amount of volume. The volume is only there so that you can progress the next time. Just understand that. I mean, that is probably a whole video in itself. It's really important to just say that again. The amount of volume you do is only important in as much as it allows you to progress for next time. That's all. It's not like automatically more is going to give you more growth. It's not the way it works. You need to do enough to progress because progression is the end point. I'm going to end with one more thing. By the way, all of this is going to be written down in the description. Right. Just want to add this in. Let's talk about progression. So essentially, any type of progression works here. If you want to do double progression, if you want to do something more modern like dynamic double progression, go nuts. Honestly, it doesn't matter. Whatever gets you going. If you want to do a rep total across 2, 3, 4 sets, by all means. The bottom line is just adding more reps, adding more weight over time. The particular style of that progression is irrelevant, doesn't matter. Most of it is just what gets your blood going. That's it. There really is very little difference. It's all the same thing. It's just adding reps until you can add weight and then repeating that. You won't get faster progression from one method versus another. The key thing to note about progression, though, is this. Once you've set your volume and you're working hard, all you can really do is do the work and wait for the adaptation to occur. That's it. So you can't expect progress every single session. It will be nice. Beginners, early intermediates can expect progress more often. Later intermediates, advanced, you can expect progress less often. What should technically happen is this. Let's say you're currently on 6 reps for a given set. At some point over the next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sessions, you will go in, you'll get to that 6th rep as you normally do, and you'll feel, oh, I can do one more. You'll do another, and maybe another. And that's how it works. Yeah, it'll just happen. You have to do the work, train really hard, wait for the adaptation to occur. But just end with one more thing. You do not need permission to alter this routine. Okay. So you don't need my permission to change the exercises or like whatever. Don't message me saying, hey, Faz, can I change this? Try it. Try it and see. Give it whatever you want to do. Give it an honest shot for 3 months and see. As I say, I wanted to put this out there as a good template for what a lot of my clients are doing and getting good results with. Right. I think I'll call it there. Yeah. So, share this and good luck with it. Give it a good try. Give it a try for 6 to 12 months. Decide on your exercises, decide on your volume, and just pound it for 12 months. Go from there. Okay. I'm going to call it there. Peace out.